Built for More podcast, week number, what is it, 3, Joby?
Yes, sir.
3. We started off with you and I.
That's right.
Then went to Kirk Herbstreit.
Yeah.
Now guest number 2. It's all right. We're still in the big leagues. Brock Purdy. Brock, appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, guys.
We are, of course, man. We've been talking about, since Joby and I talked about the podcast, you were the first one that I called. Actually, very first one, and Brock immediately said, absolutely. I think that's more as an ode to you. But I appreciate you, bro.
Nah, dude. two of my favorite people were here, so immediately said yes. So
well, I mean, the story is unbelievable, and we can get into as much as you want to get into, Brock. And I know that both Joby and I have a ton of questions, but we have to start. Like, you have to start any conversation with Brock about just NFL draft talk.
Yep.
Right? Because it's draft time, right? So we're getting around that time, NFL combine time, draft time. And I know your story starts before then, but I've been thinking a lot about this in the last week or so. I've never heard you talk about the moments immediately after everybody knows the story about you being drafted last. Like, when that happened, I've never heard you talk about the moments immediately after that and kind of what your thought was. I've heard you talk about building up to it and what your dreams were. But when you're drafted by the San Francisco 49ers with the last pick in the NFL draft, what goes through your mind right away?
Man, the first thing was I got an opportunity. Like, that was first and foremost. I was like, I was praying for an opportunity. I didn't really care about how I got there, how I got to a team, how the draft went down. It was, what am I going to do when I get the opportunity? And so when they called, I was like, man, I got an opportunity now. Like, let's roll. And obviously my family was like jumping on me and stuff and like celebrating and seeing the name up on the TV. Like, as a kid, man, as a football player, like, you dream of, man, one day if I could, have my name get, said up there and scroll across the TV that you just got drafted to a team. Like, it's so cool. So there was that, and I appreciated that. But more than anything, deep down inside me was, hey, like, this is the next, phase and journey in my life where the Lord has me, and I'm going to go all in. And I'm just grateful that I get an opportunity. Now let's make the most of it. Like, that's what.
The reason I started with that, Joby, is I thought about you when I was thinking about this interview is you two guys both of one day you're preaching youth ministry, right?
Right.
Somewhere. And now you're in this building preaching to all these people. One day you're drafted last. And I don't think people understand the odds that are against you when you're drafted last. I mean, the old poker saying of chipping a chair. Like, that's basically what it is, right? Like, you've just got a shot. And now both of you guys, God had other plans for you guys that far exceeded, I'm assuming, what either draft position said. So I just think that's cool, man. I think that's why I think, for me, your story's always been cool, because at that moment, I think a lot of people kind of, man, I made it, but I guess this is all I got. That wasn't you at all, was it?
No. I mean, for me, it was always, man, once I get a shot and an opportunity, like, I want to prove to myself, like, God's gifted me with these talents. Like, I want to show him that, all right, I am good enough, in your eyes. And if it wasn't football didn't turn out good, like, it's all good. I'm going to go in another route where you have me and be present with my life and not try to compare myself to other people's situations. It was more of, hey, I'm going to be right where I'm at and make the most of what God's blessed me with, and that's all I can do, and I'll be at peace with that. So,
at what point did you realize you were going to take over and be the quarterback for the 49ers?
Dude, I'm not going to lie, like, during camp and stuff, all the competitions were going on, and Trey was the guy, but like with Nate Sudfeld and I, and we're competing, and I knew that I could like rip the ball and going up against like some dudes that I've watched growing up on the practice field and then in preseason games. So that sort of gave me some confidence, like, okay, I can do this thing. I don't know how it's going to go down because there's guys in front of me with Trey Lance, and then later Jimmy Garoppolo joined again. But once Jimmy became the starter, I was like, I might get some playing time this year, man. I just don't know when.
Okay.
Yeah.
What player were you most in awe of when you showed up? I mean, because
Dude.
You're real young, and so you're in high school when, what is it, like Debo or somebody? I mean.
Yeah. No. Debo was going through like his contract negotiation stuff, but I remember I was in the weight room stretching one day. And I grew up like, watching Debo ball out and stuff. And then all of a sudden he comes strolling in, and I like stop my stretching and I look and I'm like, bro, that's Debo Samuel. Like, and he's in there like talking to all the coaches and stuff. I was like, no way. And I was acting all quiet and humble. And it was funny. I always tell Debo this. The backup quarterbacks at practice, like we'll get to a period where we're just throwing routes on there and stuff, and the starting quarterback throws to the main guys. But if a guy doesn't get a ball, the backup quarterback is like, a couple yards behind the starter, and he throws him the ball. And I would throw the ball to Debo whenever he didn't get it, and he tossed me back, and then he, just talking trash to me, like jokingly and stuff, and I would just like not say anything back. He's like, bro, like, why are you so scared of me? And I was like, dude, you're Debo. Like, you're the guy that I like watched growing up. I don't want to say the wrong thing to you.
You can get me cut.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't look like your average receiver either, does he?
No, he was, dude, just rocked up, just a strong dude. And so anyways, that was the first one. And then quickly, Trent Williams. When Trent Williams reported for vet minicamp my rookie year, like everyone all year was like, wait till you see this guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, we'll see. And then he came strolling through the weight room, and everyone was like, just get out of Trent's way. He's like the nicest guy. But when I saw him and how gifted he is at left tackle, he's just one of those 1%ers that was born to play left tackle and be a Hall of Famer immediately. And so when I got into his presence, I was just like, dude, I got to get out of this guy's way.
Isn't it wild to see somebody that size, that athletic?
Oh, it's insane. Yeah.
Every year we go to the combine, that's the thing. Like I'll find myself looking over at the defensive lineman, offensive lineman. Joby, you're talking about 320-pound guys that are running sub 540s.
I know.
It's unbelievable what these guys can absolutely
They mostly
do.
come out of Georgia.
There's a lot. I mean, dude, every week we get our scouting report. I'm like, Georgia, all these guys from Georgia. I'm like, dang, dude.
That is officially the longest we've made it in this podcast.
That's
until
it.
a Georgia reference.
They're real. They're fast in their cars too. That's the
They are.
problem.
Y'all gotta
They're all
slow
going
down,
to
bro.
jail. Golly,
Got to slow down a little bit.
I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, the other reason I was bringing that up because it's like it's a Disney movie. You go last pick, and then all of a sudden, was it week 13 you're starting, right? And then you go NFC Championship game, have an injury, like, oh no, what are we going to do now, right? Like in the Disney movie, what happens now? Dude recovers from the injury in record time, then goes back to an NFC Championship game down 17 at halftime, something like that.
Yep.
And freaking balls out the second half and goes Super Bowl. And then that's where, things get a little sketchy, lost in overtime. But that story's still to be written.
Incredible.
Right? Like it's just incredible all the things at your age that you've overcome to find yourself as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, man. That's it's pretty cool.
When did you realize that you had the potential to be an NFL quarterback? Like was it high school?
I mean,
did you excel at that level in high school?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. My whole story, dude, has been just being overlooked, not good enough. And for me, deep down inside, I'm like, I know I can play and compete at this level. And so high school was the case. And then I became a starter and we went to the state championship, all that. But I got recruited very late. And then all of a sudden, I barely get an offer at the end. And I go to Iowa State. And then I was the third string guy going into that, overlooked. And then I became the starter for, halfway through that season, and then for 4 more years. But and then I got drafted last, and so all these people tell me that, you're not going to be good enough. But deep down inside, like this whole time, I'm like, just wait till I get an opportunity to compete. And I'm not going to look back with it, man. And so I've thought that at every level, high school, college, NFL, but always deep down, like just watching those Gator games on the coffee table, watching Tebow and the boys, like, I'm like, dude, I would get fired up just wanting to be in that environment. I know that I had what it takes back then, but it's a one step at a time kind of thing.
Denny, I wrote a book last year called Run Over by the Grace Train, and we did this roundtable discussion thing, and it's a bunch of folks, but Tebow was there and Brock was there. And the girl, Allie, the girl hosting the conversation, asked about being Mr. Irrelevant. And dude, this was a super neat moment because Brock grows up looking up to Tebow, watching him. And then Tebow gets really protective and has this like big brother moment. And you know how Tebow can do. It got real locker room and his voice real high. And he was like, you're not Mr. Irrelevant. God's got a purpose and God's got and we were just all sitting there watching this thing happen in front of us.
I saw that.
It was really, really cool, man.
I saw that. By the way, Tebow looked huge in that.
Dude.
That's because nobody's hitting him anymore. He just gets to work out.
Yes.
Absolutely. No, I saw that. And that's I don't know, man. I'm around these guys enough that I think sometimes I don't appreciate their stories. And I'm just kind of flipping through your story last night, just knowing we're doing this. And it's like such a maturity to say what you just said of you got to have patience. I mean, you're what, 25?
Yep.
So how much patience can a 25-year-old have, first off? But there's a maturity to know that you got to have patience and you got to take advantage of opportunities. Where did that come from? Was that a home life thing? Is that a...
Yeah, I mean, my dad, he played minor league baseball for about 8 years or so, and so he understood like what it took at the professional level to, not only get there but like maintain a routine and having poise and all that. And so I definitely looked up to him in the way that he carried himself and lived his life of, disciplining us, but then loving us right after. And like more than anything, loving us and teaching us what a man looks like in your life and how he led my mom and our family. And so just watching his demeanor and everything from working his butt off to provide for our family to getting up and going to church and hitting us ground balls in the backyard, all of it, I saw like my dad as that. And so I feel like as I've gone throughout my life, whether it's high school, college, NFL, I'm like, there's nothing too big, to make me change and out of characteristic. Like I know I want to be like him. And he was, the guy that I always looked up to and still look up to. But yeah, he showed me the ropes of that. So
yeah, I mean, I just think that's uncharacteristic. And I think that's part of what makes you so great. I mean, I don't have that still at my age. It's God showed me enough that it's going to work out if you just do the right things, but I still want to go on my own timetable. And that's the thing that when I look at your story, even Iowa State, the early success you had and down to my son walking in and laughing at you. That story I'll tell you in a second. But it's always been like a next push for you, a next level for you, right? Like something happens and then you take one step back and 5 steps forward. Arm injury, whatever it is. And I mean, I think that's a direct reason why you're having the success that you're having, at least in my eyes.
Do you feel pressure to get molded into that NFL quarterback persona? Because you're not. I mean, I listen, I'm just a fan that sits on the couch. One of God's greatest miracles is I root for the 49ers now. Holy moly, who ever saw that coming? But I'm just rooting for you, But, you don't act like name the NFL quarterback off the field. You're just your own guy.
Yeah. I mean,
you feel that kind of pressure?
I'm not going to lie. Yeah, there's been times where it's like, these guys are doing this, and you hear all these stories of these legend quarterbacks, doing certain things, which is great, and it worked for them. But I feel like the guys who know who they are and how God created them, and they live that out and just attack being the best version of them with that, I feel like those are the guys that have the success. Obviously you hear the stories of Kobe chasing Jordan and all those things, and that's cool for like the competitive side of things. But for me, I've realized, and I have to keep going back to it because I'll catch myself trying to be like somebody else, but it comes down to, God's created me this certain way. I'm not 6'5", 6'4". I'm this shorter quarterback, but the way that I process things, the way I lead guys in the locker room, the way I live my life and who I am and directing everything that I do back towards God, that's who He's created me to be. And I'm running with that now. And I just want to be the best version that I can be every single day. And that's where I'm at right now.
Well, Joby, you and I have talked about this, though. There's more of that going on in the world today. Good. There's more people professing faith. There's more people saying my identity is not in whatever it is my job is than I think there's been in decades. Like you think about the quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean, there's a couple guys that do that on a regular basis and live that way as well. I don't know. I think the old school prototypical party guy quarterback, I don't think that's really that relevant anymore. Am I wrong with that?
No, I agree. To be successful at this level, like that just doesn't fly. At the end of the day, it comes down to a guy who can get it done. And how do you get it done? It's, being on top of your stuff, the way you lead guys, being smart, processing, like all those things. And then it comes out to being, you're that kind of guy that you just talked about in terms of being a dude with a good head on his shoulders, not looking for the parties and all that stuff, man. If you try that out, you ain't gonna last long. So
such a good point though, because this level that these guys are playing at takes everything.
Yeah.
Like every bit of mental energy, every bit of mental sharpness.
But some of them have been so good that they think they can just assume upon a talent and not bring their whole self, right? And that's where you see guys that do great in the combine or do great in college because the talent level, the talent disparity when in college, it's just different versus just 32 teams in the NFL. Nobody's actually open. Right? Yeah. All right, I got a question. Yeah. You're going to throw a seam. Got it. Debo's outside. He's going to run a seam. what do you see? Can you see that he's actually open, or like help me? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. You're 6 foot, whatever you are. Everybody in front of you is a foot taller than everybody else on the planet. Hands are in the air, and it's just, I mean, because the angle we get, they're like, oh God, he had a step. But if you're 40 yards away on the ground, looking through 20 other people, what do you see to release that ball? Or is it, it's 50-50 and you're just going to try to put it in the right place?
I mean, so my quarterback coach, Brian Greasy, the last couple of years, he and I talked about that. He played 11 years. His dad's Bob Greasy. But we got talking about how really it's 60-40. You can see about 60% of the time, and the other 40% you really can't. I mean, it doesn't matter how bigger you are.
Right.
I mean, I'm already shorter in stature, yes, but he goes, that's why it's so important when it comes down to knowing coverages, knowing scheme, where our players are supposed to be, how many steps they're breaking, and where the ball should be over a certain backer. Like all those things, man, it matters. And that's why, like, guys, if you go to a combine and all those things, you're just throwing on air, and yeah, you look all good with a strong arm and fast jumping, all that stuff. But when it comes down to 11 on 11 and you got guys that are a foot taller than you and you can't see, it comes down to the processing. Like before the play, like I know that the safety is probably going to rotate down. It's going to be one high, and I got one hitch, no more than that, to rip it where Debo's supposed to be like just inside the hash, and there's a backer that's also got a 40-inch vert that I got to put up. Like
that's what's crazy.
All those things.
Yeah. When you fit it in over the backer and underneath the deep safety, I'm like, oh my.
And he's elite in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, your accuracy is
in the middle of the field.
Yeah. It is so crazy.
Which is a lost art, by the way. Completely lost art, too.
So what's the difference? All right, we've talked about this before. Again, I'm just a fan, big fan of just college football in general, NFL, some teams. And there are all of these high level Division I SEC quarterbacks that set records, and they can't even make a roster in the NFL. What is that jump from Division I college football to playing in the NFL? Obviously, you made it, and you made it quick. It's not like you sat behind somebody for 7 years and learned.
Man, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is, dude, everybody in the NFL as a starter, even second string guys, dude, they're the best in the world at what they do, And you can have a great team in college, be surrounded by a great supporting cast, all these SEC schools that recruit great and they got great teams and they win national championships. And I'm not knocking them for that. That's awesome. Keep doing that. But like when it comes to the NFL, dude, you're playing against the best of the best at every position. And so with that being said, it's like, how do you separate yourself? The talent, everybody's so talented, and you got to be talented to play, yes. But at the end of the day, man, it's coming down to the mental part of the game of processing quickly, making the right decisions over and over and over. Kittle told me my rookie year, I'm like, dude, so like, what is it? And he goes, have you heard that Marshawn Lynch quote about you're going to get got, but you need a got more than the other guy or something like that? It's whoever can.
It sounds like a Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah. I was like, huh? By the way. And so I listened and I thought about it, and he goes, Brocky, he's like, at the end of the day, it's you just got to be more consistent than the guy across from you and do better longer. They're going to make great plays. You're going to be, but who can do it the longest, mentally, physically, all of it together?
That whole team thing is a big deal, right? Like you just said, 40% of the time, you really can't see.
Yep.
So there's a high level of trust that guy is going to be exactly where he is going to be. Because if he's not, nobody's going to talk about him.
100%.
They're going to talk about your interception, right? Talk about how tough it is to develop that and what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's reps on reps on reps, practice day in and day out, off-season times where you're getting together with your receivers and then going out in the field and running it over and over and over again, like during the season. That's why I love this rookie last year, Ricky Pearsall, receiver from Florida. Like this dude went through so much adversity early on, but anytime he was out in the field with us at practice, he'd come up to me and just wouldn't shut up. Brock, dude, I'm going to take this many steps here, break out. You can trust me on the side. But I love that. For me, it's, dude, in the heat of the moment, I need a guy that I can trust. And this guy wants to get on the same page with me. So after practice, he's running routes, I'm throwing to him, and then in the game, boom, we're hitting it on third down and converting. Like that's what it takes time and time again. And that was just a little example, but outside of that, like the offensive lineman guys up front, like it's getting in the huddle, not stuttering and acting afraid, but like ripping off plays, looking them in the eye, being confident, rep after rep after rep, so that in the heat of the battle, man, you can get it done.
Imagine that trust. I think about that all the time. Like there's how many pounds in the front seven of a defense coming at you?
Yeah.
You think you've identified the right protection? Like maybe they may be +1 over there. Like I'm relying on my guy to beat their guy. If not, that 295 pounds is coming after me, and I've got to throw a ball in the right spot that I can't quite see. Yep. It's a pretty hard game.
Yeah, Brock and I were at an event together recently, a couple weeks ago, and so we were hanging out and catching up and stuff. And we met a couple years ago. He was training with you, attending 1122, and then we got connected, and then our wives got connected, and so we kind of stay in touch. And he was asking me, how do you do all the things that you do? You know, because and I was like, bro, you know, when everything is just clicking on all cylinders on the field, like all the linemen are making their blocks, all the receivers are getting separation, everybody, like how long could the field be and you still score? It'd be 400 yards, right? Mm-hmm. You don't even get tired, right? You just drop back, go. All right, and then you compare that to when something breaks down and you got to scramble. It's not the run 20 yards and slide that wears you out. It's the next play when you're like, is it going to be that way again? Mm. And I just happen to have a team here at 1122 that surrounds me that I just get to play quarterback. I just get to drop back and pass. I rarely have to scramble right now. And that's how I get to do what I'm able to do. And that applies everywhere. Like you could work at a car lot or you could be an NFL quarterback. And when everybody's doing their job in the right way, everybody can perform at a high level for a long time.
Mm. Do y'all have that, and we're just kind of chatting here, so I'm just going to ask this. Do y'all have that feeling sometimes where you get in that where, man, everything's going great, everything's going great. What happens when it doesn't?
One of the things we talk about here is when it's going. We just had this meeting in an all-staff meeting 2 weeks ago. It's going great at 1122 right now. All the things you can measure, the things you can't measure. Like the Lord is on the move, more people getting saved, more people attending, more people going on mission trips, all the things that we would say are positive things. So we huddled up and like, okay, why is it going good right now? Because like when you if your car breaks and you take it to a mechanic, they don't necessarily know everything that could be wrong with it. They just know what it looks like when it's right. Mm. And they know how to restore it to right. And so it's not enough to just point out where your weaknesses and faults are. When it's going right, you should evaluate that so that when you get off, you can get back to right. Mm. And that could be in the locker room. Yep. Or that could be a mechanical thing. Or it could just be an attitude thing with the team. That's very, very
How do you guys deal, both of you, how do you guys deal with when you're keeping that going, but maybe God's idea of right is different than your idea? Maybe God's idea of right is tearing a UCL in the NFC Championship game, right? And we've all got those. We all have those.
For sure.
Right? How do you, and you specifically on this, how do you rebound so quickly from that and go, okay, well, I just made this monstrous climb. Let me go do it again.
I mean, what comes to mind is like I took my emotions to God. Like I was frustrated, dude. I was like, why? You know, in my mind, it's everything's going so good, and we're one game away from the Super Bowl, and my arm just tears the first drive of the NFC Championship game. Like, why? And I'm frustrated. I'm like, but I think at the end of the day, man, we have such a good God that He wants me to take those emotions and feelings and everything to Him. And for me, it's beautiful that I have a God and a Creator that can handle everything that I'm going through. He can handle everything and more. And so that's where I went. That was the first thing. And then from there it was, hey, dude, like you want to know what real trust is and what faith looks like. It's getting up from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. for 6 months straight and rehabbing your arm, trying to get back and just watch, just watch and see. Just trust me, keep your eyes on me and watch. And that's what I learned from that, and then had the Super Bowl run year and all that kind of stuff. But how much peace and joy and content that I had in those 6 months, for as chaotic as it seemed on the outside world, like that's what I was going through. Like my heart was at so much ease throughout that.
I struggle with that. Like just being real, I struggle because things same as both you guys. Right now, things are going great.
Yep.
Like no complaints in the world. But in the back of my mind, there's always that, well, what if we get a call about my wife? What if the cancer comes back? Or what, you know what I mean? And you just, I've had this thought lately of faith wouldn't be faith if it was always great.
Sure.
Right? Like, I mean, that wouldn't be called faith at all. And so I keep digging into that, but I'm generally asking both of you guys, like, how do you keep that from coming back? How do you live so present and say, you know what, this is what I'm called to do, and regardless of what happens over here or happens over here, I'm going to keep my eyes right there.
Yeah.
You know, that's a tough thing, I think, for people.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is old Scottish proverb: for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. And some people can believe, because I believe in God, because I trust God, then He owes me, you know, Cadillacs and cotton candy and everything's going to be great. Nobody's ever going to get cancer and I'm going to win the Super Bowl. And that is a lie from the pit of hell. See Jesus' life, you know. He did the Father's will and ended up on a cross. The other ditch, though, is that I can't trust God. If things are going good, at some point he's going to get me. And that's not what the Bible teaches either. He's a good dad. He loves his kids. Of course he disciplines us, and he's in charge of all things. But he's not waiting. He's not like heaping us up with these blessings just to set us up to pull the rug out from under us. None of us, you wouldn't do that as a father. Now, if your kid got out of line, you would discipline them. And no matter what happens to us, he is in control. And all of us have been through things that when we look back in the review, we see God at work. But we can trust that he's a good dad. You know, something's interesting. Brock and I have a discipleship relationship. We meet, we talk about life and following Jesus and all the things. He rarely talks about football. He rarely talks about football. He wants to know what this Bible verse means. He wants to know how to love his wife better. He wants to know how to navigate through this family thing. He rarely talks about fame, fortune, like the things that most people would associate with being, like you said, one of the best NFL quarterbacks. It very well could be the reason that you're sitting where you are is because God knows that you could be trusted with the seat that he would allow you to sit in. And one of the things that early on, we would talk about this too. He'd go, man, so when a microphone is shoved in my face after I win a game, how much do I need to talk about the Lord? And I go, bro, first be a great quarterback. Mm-hmm. You know, if they need a good sermon, send them to me. That's what I do. Now, obviously, you're just going to be a normal Jesus follower and talk about Jesus as much as you want to, but you should feel no pressure just because you follow Jesus that every third word in every presser has to be a Bible verse or something. Like, just be who God created you to be. Be a great quarterback. More people will listen. And then, you know, Acts 1:8 says, and you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you and you'll be a witness. So when he nudges you, lean into it.
Yeah, I mean, I also think, though, that there's a piece of you that gets to a part where we talked about this, the very first one, where you have a hard time talking about yourself because you look at what God's done in your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I didn't do any of this stuff. Like, and so it's almost like stolen valor. It's almost like I don't want, when somebody asks me something, like, I don't want to make this about me because that's a lie. That's an absolute, and I'm not putting this on you. I'm saying from my perspective, I don't even know how the heck I got here. I don't know how I'm sitting here with you two guys. So I can't take credit for that. So I do get that. Like, it's almost like, it's a weird, awkward feeling when somebody asks you, man, how about your performance? And you're sitting there going, man, I'm just Brock. Like, I'm not sure how I got here.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's honestly for me, like, because my heart is like for Jesus and about him so much that it's like, dude, I feel so awkward even saying like, yeah, like third down right there. Did you see that? Like, I can't. I'm like, I feel gross even saying that, but it's stolen valor, dude. That's so true. But the cool thing with Joby that, you know, we talked about a while back, he told me, and I asked that question to him. I'm like, dude, how should I be using my platform? How should I be talking about Jesus after games? Like, what do I do? Where do I start? And all the questions. And he goes, dude, swing for the fences at being a great quarterback. Swing for the fences. This is where God has you. You're a quarterback, and he's blessed you with the talents. Use those talents to honor him, but swing for the fences. Like, that's what I took away from our first meeting. And just like you said, the Holy Spirit, man, will kick in when the time is right and he needs you to speak. But
yeah, and love your wife. You know, like, be a great husband.
Yeah.
And don't be an idiot for your whole career. You know, like, this isn't a snapshot. You know, life is not a reel. Life is not an Instagram post. Like, you have a career of character and integrity, always pointing to Jesus when you get an opportunity to, loving your wife, you know, one day raising kids, all the things, right? And people are like, what is it about that guy? Because, you know, a bunch of players in all kind of sports have said God and Jesus things at the end of a win. And the problem is that 2 weeks later, their life betrayed them because they were just saying things. Yeah, man.
That's a trap too, though.
Oh, for sure.
No, I mean, even the other way. Like, I mean, there's this. I mean, it's a trap of me getting on here and talking to you guys about God. Like, who am I? Who am I? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to leave
Thompson
here right now, and I'm going to go
quarterback whisperer.
I'm going to go sin. Like, I mean, and then somebody's going to listen to this, and again, not to make this about me, but then it's like, I don't even like to hear myself on this. Like, I can't listen to this podcast.
Oh, you're so good.
I can't.
I listened to you on the radio for a long time.
No. I mean, I'm saying that like you two guys deal with that in a remarkable way.
Here's one of the things I've learned. If people come up to me and say very nice things, you know, after church or in an airport or read a book or whatever, you know, and I get it. You have had an imaginary conversation with the person that you wanted to meet, right? And you wanted them to be awesome back.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to have that experience. But they say all these wonderful things, and I feel like they're giving me way too much credit. But I also don't want to cut their legs out from under them because this is like their moment.
Yeah.
I just say, I never actually agree with them. It sounds like I do, but I just say, thank you for saying that, or thank you for those kind words. I don't even just say thank you, because thank you would be like, I received the compliment you gave me. I'm not even totally doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the Bible says we're supposed to encourage one another. You're encouraging me. Thank you for saying that. And then immediately I just started asking them questions about them. Immediately. So tell me about you. How, you know, if it's about a sermon, how'd you get a hold of that? Tell me about your family, whatever it is. And then people can walk away and be like, wow, what a nice guy.
Joby just hit my problem. I don't like people like that.
See, I love people. So.
How's married life going?
Yeah,
It's been awesome.
It's been a little over a year, right?
Yeah, we just had our 1 year anniversary, and my sister got married the day before, so those are 2 anniversaries that we'll never forget. But yeah, man, the first year's it's been good. All the craziness that comes with the NFL and getting pulled in a million different directions with people coming to games and family and friends and people that you love, but having her by my side to, you know, navigate and discern things, just all things. Having your best friend be able to do that with you every day, man, there's nothing better. So.
And y'all met in college?
Yes, sir.
And she's an athlete?
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
And was Iowa State, like, why Iowa State?
For her or me?
You.
Like,
for you.
Football-wise. So, like I said, I got recruited very late, and like the last 4 weeks, I took all these visits, and then I had to pick a school and sign before signing day on February 7th. And so I took some visits and stuff, and I had Texas A&M offered, and that was a legit one. I was like, okay, Texas A&M or Iowa State. But the head coach at Iowa State was a dude that was all about just character and building something that hadn't been done for the first time at a school that played Power 5 football in the Big 12. And great college town, all these amazing people in Iowa. And so when I went, I was like, yeah, I want to buy into this guy's vision and help do something.
So you would say your recruitment was a little frustrating, a little underwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
Is what I'm getting to. Like, and so you end up at Iowa State where you meet your wife.
Yep.
Have a huge career. I've been around this guy enough to know he is a lifelong Iowa State guy now.
Always
serious about Iowa State. Again, another cool story. Like, it's just, you know, God placing different things that are different people in different paths. And then looking back and going, oh, okay. Well, that's why I didn't go to Wait, Mac Jones said he hosted you on an Alabama visit. Is that true?
Yeah. So, and then that was one of the other visits. And the whole offer thing there was weird. They were like, yeah, come here. You got an offer. And then at the end, they're like, I don't know if we have another spot. Like, it was just weird. But regardless, I wanted Iowa State at the end of it. Growing up, my dad and my brother were big Alabama fans. So we're like, all right, let's just go take this visit. And sure enough, Mac Jones was my host. And,
that's hysterical.
He took us around and stuff. And yeah, it's just
I
crazy.
would want
circle.
Mac as a host.
Dude, yeah, he's hilarious. Mac
I'm telling
is
you, Joby,
man.
when he walks into training, whole different. Like,
really?
it's you. Oh, you're going to be playing with him now.
Yeah.
They're together now. I mean,
He's
one of the
hilarious, dude.
funniest human beings.
Isn't that crazy? And
Yeah.
it's so weird how college to the NFL, it's so crazy. That's what I'm saying.
Mac's a dude.
Right?
Mac's a dude.
Yeah, he can sling it.
Mac can spin it. Yeah. Don't let those people on the internet fool you about Mac Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's a baller.
Yeah.
For sure.
He's funny, though, because we'll be like, you know, throwing routes on there or whatever, like off-season stuff, training. And he's just got this good, big personality. And he's just like, we'll sometimes get a little bored. And then he'll go out in front of the receiver and start playing DB and like try to guard him. I'm like, dude, I love this guy. He's hilarious.
It's phenomenal. And then
I can't see him in the back pedal.
Yeah, no, it's a little awkward.
It's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's not pretty. And then Brother's got another year of football too.
Yep.
Chubba. He's
yeah.
one of my favorite human beings on the planet, by the way. Have you spent much time with Chubba?
Uh-uh.
Oh,
Yeah, younger brother, dude. Big smile, big personality. Everybody who meets Chubba, they absolutely love, and they just gravitate towards him. And but he's got the younger sibling energy of just smiling all the time, just going with wherever the Lord has him. But yeah, he's got one more year at Nevada as a quarterback, and so I'm excited for him.
Let me tell you how close they are.
Okay.
We're sitting at a tattoo parlor. Me, Carson Beck, Jeff Sims, and Chubba. And we're gonna get one. We're all have one except for Chubba. Chubba's like, heck no, Brock will kill me.
That's right. I would have put him in a chokehold.
Like, we tried to talk him into it too, and no, we wasn't having it at all.
You should have called me.
Yeah.
I got room somewhere right there.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the thing. He'll watch this and be like, dude, Joey's got tats. So thanks.
No tats for you?
I don't have any, no. I'm not,
It's not your
against
style.
it. Yeah, it's just, people have their ways and stuff. But as a little brother, I'm always just hard on him for stuff. So I'm sure he was hearing
hysterical.
my voices in his head.
Oh, without
It's
question.
funny. JP, my son, came to me when he turned 18. He's like, Dad, I want to get a tattoo. I was like, don't be stupid, son. 18-year-olds don't make good decisions. That's the dumbest idea. You need to wait. I was in my 30s before I got my first one. I'm going through this whole thing. And he's like, well, I wanted to get the fourth because I'm the third and he's the fourth. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'll get in the car. I'll go right now.
It's a great decision.
Dude, and I was like, I love it so much. And he was like, will you get the third? And I was like, yeah, so I got the third right there. And he got the fourth on his chest.
Wow.
It was great. I mean,
He's got to stay in shape now.
well, he's ripped. Yeah, one day it'll be terrible, but right now he's shredded. So,
Oh, yeah.
but it was cool though, because it was so honoring. He was like, let's call Granddaddy, see if he'll get Junior. He didn't go for it.
That's hilarious.
I'm not built for a tattoo on the chest right now, fellas.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, no. We need to hit some push-ups.
Hey, what's your
before I do that.
favorite part of being a quarterback?
Man, I think, honestly, man, just where everybody comes from and then having to be the guy to sort of get guys together and then let's go accomplish this thing and watch how cool it'll be at the end. Because when you first start, every year, especially in the NFL, there's so much turnover and stuff with free agency guys leave, you're drafting rookies, you got another free agent or two joining. And it's like, how can we take this group of guys every year who don't know each other and you got to find a way to love each other and then go accomplish the thing. And so being a quarterback and doing that to me is like what it's all about. So I love that.
And they walk in looking to you, especially after the past couple of years, right?
Yeah, no doubt. They do. But, it's the fine line of, hey, I love you and let's get to know you, but there's a standard and we got to go work together, and it's not going to be easy. But once you get to the top and look back, it's like, wow, that was tough, but this is a pretty beautiful thing that we get to accomplish together. And then you erase all that and do it again. So
I hate to be Denny Downer here, but let's talk about the Super Bowl for a minute.
Yeah.
So, Pat Mahomes on the other side.
mm,
That's worth some points alone, right? Like, how often do you think about that game?
Last year, especially in the off season, it's like, dude, what could have been? In our eyes, we're a couple plays away, and you give him a chance at the end and the overtime, and he does what everybody expected Pat Mahomes to do, is go score and stuff. So, nothing but respect for him and his career and the way he's led Kansas City and that organization. But just that game in general, there's a lot of moments that I go back and watch film and it hurts just because it's like I could have done this or that. But at the end of the day, just like what we're talking about, like you go through these things and you want everything to be so perfect, but I think God just teaches you so much more when you go through tough things and when everything's not perfect. I mean, whether it's an arm surgery, losing the Super Bowl, just something that goes on in life, being able to get through that, knowing that God got you through it, and what is He trying to teach you through that, and asking those questions. So, obviously, I want to win a Super Bowl. I want to win a Super Bowl. I want to win many for San Francisco and my teams that I play for. So, I don't know, man. I'm still trying to figure out.
Is what they talk about before the Super Bowl, that having to control your breathing, and is that real? Is it that different? Is it?
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It was the Super Bowl to me. Everything's a production, so it's very lengthy. The whole week, you got media, all these different events you got to go do, and then play on Sunday. And so actually the week before is when we prepared, 2 weeks ahead of the game for our meetings and practices and all that. So it was just a very long process. And then before the game, usually you got, about 5 minutes, the clock, and they do the coin toss, and then boom, you get right into the game. The Super Bowl was 15 minutes, so you're just out there waiting and waiting. They do the national anthem, they do all the production. Halftime's another 30 minutes to 45 minutes longer. So it just felt long. But I will say the game, since you're not at a home site for anybody, really, it's a neutral site, and there's a lot of people that are just fans of the game. And the game's sort of quiet. As a player, it's weird. It's like sort of quiet when you're out there. Third downs and high pressure situations, it got a little loud. But outside of that, man, it was one of the more quieter games that I've ever played in.
As a fan and somebody who, semi works in this world, I went the year before. Mm-hmm. So the NFC Championship year for y'all, because Gardner was with the Eagles. And so I went out to Arizona the year before. And you quickly realize, though, man, like that thing's heavy. Like just that Super Bowl's heavy, and this is what we're all doing this for.
Yeah.
Like everybody, and be on the football sense of from the time you're training young to the amount of time that we spend training to the amount of time that they spend on this. It literally is. There's only one happy team at the end of the year.
Yep.
It is all for that moment. That's wild to think about. Like that's something unique to sports, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's like baseball, basketball. There's a champion. There's just one champion.
Yep.
That's a lot of pressure once you go there early in your career too. Because do you feel like, oh, well, now I can do this again. I can do this again. Where there's a lot of guys been in the league for 15 years, never even sniffed a Super Bowl.
Dude, even playoffs, how big of a deal playoffs is to get into the tournament, you know? And I remember Trent Williams talking about how important it was, and his whole career in Washington before he got to San Francisco, they never went to the playoffs. And so when he came over, I think in like 2021, he was like, dude, how grateful he is like 12 years into this thing that he even made the playoffs, and then let alone the Super Bowl, you know, 2 years ago for all of us. It's like, you know, as a rookie, I came in, we were one game away. My sophomore year, boom, we go to the Super Bowl. So I was spoiled. And then last year, I found out tough way, like, dude, this ain't given every year. We didn't even make playoffs, and things can happen. And so after that game, just seeing guys that were crushed, Juice, Kittle, Christian, Ayuk, Trent, like Fred, all these guys, man, like they all get how tough this thing is. And so going into the game, I think I was a little bit spoiled thinking, okay, like, you know, we got here. It wasn't easy, but I got here my second year where all these other guys were like, dude, no. Like this thing, you got to be grateful for it and then go make the most of every play and opportunity, because there's no promises of ever getting back here. You know, so I'm still trying to process all.
Do you feel like you have to, coming into this year, since y'all didn't make the playoffs last year, it's the first time in your career, do you feel like you have to be a little different in your leadership style? Is there something you're changing off of what people would say was not a great season for San Francisco as opposed to a year when you come back from NFC Championship or Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, every year's a little different. 2 years ago, after my rookie year, I think we all had this bad taste in our mouth because our whole team felt like we didn't have a chance to compete against the Eagles in the NFC Championship. I get a torn UCL, the backup quarterback gets a concussion, boom, season ripped away from everybody. And it's like, hold up. So we came back just on one 2 years ago, went to the Super Bowl, fell short of it. And then last year, man, guys were tired. Like that season, dude, is no joke. And when you go from July of training and everything all the way to the end of February, and then you really get 5 weeks off or so and you got to report back, and then you're going again. Yep. It's like, dude, guys are tired. They're still beat up. Their bodies, for these guys that are getting older, like it's not easy. And then last year we just had a lot of things go crazy in a wire, like with injuries and whatnot. But so you can't take things for granted. And so for me going into this year, it's like, how can I just continue to press that gas pedal, not only just for my team, but for myself, be hard on myself, dude. And like, just with, the potential that I have watching film and all those things, but also holding everything loosely, like as a faithful man, knowing that I can't control everything in my life to go perfectly. Like this is God's will, not mine. So
how much of a fan is Jenna of football?
She, dude, I'm not gonna lie. She keeps up with it with our team now, but beforehand, dude, she couldn't tell you anything about football. Like I still teach her things all the time. And she doesn't not care about football, but what she just cares about her husband more than anything. You know, she's watching the game, praying that injuries and stuff like that, I'm safe and I can come home and hug her and kiss her and all that. That's what cares about the most in my heart throughout all of this. Where am I at with just how my job is going, my career. So that's what she cares about the most, which is why I love her. You know, that's why I married that woman. And
it's also a real gift you met when you met.
Oh, yeah, before all of this.
Correct.
100%.
Yeah, I heard it was actually Lou Holt said one time, when you're trying to make a decision as a man, the person you need to listen to most in your life other than Jesus would be your wife, because nobody loves you like she does, knows you like she does, and is less impressed than she is. Like never once is she like, well, you shouldn't take out the trash. You're one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Let me get that for you.
Because some people ask me like, you know, how with the success of the church, how do you stay humble? I was like, just be married, bro. Just be married. I mean, you know, it's just the thing. In fact, part of the way our wives connected, we were at a Tebow event together. And Brock and I maybe texted a few times, and, you know, that kind of stuff. But we hadn't met in person yet. So he and Jenna, y'all just got married, I think.
Yeah.
They come walking in the room, and we're talking a little bit, and then they begin to get swarmed. Brock does, and you could see in his wife's eyes, like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? And Gretchen, on a much smaller scale, but around here in Jacksonville, Gretchen knows what that's like, and just went and put her arm around her, kind of said, hey, I can help you with this.
Yeah.
And it was a really neat thing. But that's what the church is supposed to do, right? Like Gretchen and I have been married 25 years. You've been married 1.
Yep.
So folks that are our age are supposed to grab younger couples like that and say, okay, we're going to help you navigate this stuff.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful.
I think that's a talent as a wife too.
Dude, my wife is the best.
Yeah, I mean, just the things that I'm able to do because of the load that my wife carries at the house, and never complains about it, is thankful about everything that's happening. Like, I'm realizing that's not normal. That's not normal.
I tell guys in ministry all the time, bro, when you get married, you're either going to marry a lid or a launch pad.
Yep.
You're either going to marry a person that you will never be able to do what you could have done because she dragged you down and won't let you be who God called you to be out of insecurity or whatever it is. Or I married a girl that I can do exceedingly more than I could have done on my own. Not just because she holds it down with my house and kids and, that kind of thing, but the encouragement, the actual critical eye without a critical heart, she's not blowing smoke. So if she has advice for me, if she's got a concern, here's something else, dude. I have learned over time, like my wife she's never pastored a church. She's never preached a sermon. She's never planted a church. But if she's got that little spidey sense and says, this is just something I think you should do or not do, I've learned 100% of the time she's right. There's been people I'm about to hire, and she's like, I don't think you should hire that guy. And I'm like, what do you know about hiring? You don't know about hiring people. And then 6 months later, I've got to have this awful conversation because I've let the guy go because he ain't the right guy. And then even then, she doesn't rub it in my face. Oh. So it may be about a thing that you don't think they necessarily have expertise in, but what they do have expertise in is you.
Mm-hmm.
And that mama bear thing that God gave them, they're trying to protect you and home.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't care what everybody thinks, like we care.
Yeah, we think we can handle it.
The three most dangerous words a grown man can say that's following Jesus is, I got this. Because you ain't got this.
Yep. What's the, I know there's a lot, but what's the biggest change in your life in the last 2 or 3 years? I mean, other than, the story came out that you were living with, 15 people in some 2-bedroom apartment in San Francisco.
Yeah, what's that?
Dude, right, we're in my second year. We're about to play the Cowboys on Sunday night, and I do a sit-down interview, and they ask about life and what it looks like for me, and I'm like, I mean, honestly, I can't afford a house or anything right now, and I'm renting a house with a teammate, an offensive lineman that I did the year before. And my rookie year, I rented an apartment place with him and another offensive lineman. So I was slowly working up. And they took that and ran with it, saying I was like Harry Potter living underneath the staircase. And I was like, really?
I was going to start a GoFundMe for you.
But. Yeah, thanks. But no, it was not like that. So we lived in a house with a roommate, and then Jen and I got married, and then he lived with us until the lease, his lease was up, and we're like, hey, man, like,
you got to go.
Yeah, you got to go. And I love Nick. He's the man.
But other than that,
we don't need a 300-pound baby at our house.
Yes.
How's your life changed? Like,
oh, man.
Good, bad, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think, friends, family, it's like, dude, we love everybody in our life. And it's like, we want to get back to everybody and share our life with everybody as if everything was normal. But it's just slightly changed. And you can't get back to everybody all the time. And Jenna and I, since getting married, it's been about Jenna and us and our relationship and marriage. And from there, it's like, all right, how can we love everybody in our life? But it's been tough, I'm not going to lie. And I put that, like, it's a burden on my shoulders because it's like, I don't want to change because of the spotlight or the platform, I'm still the same kid from Queen Creek, Arizona, and I'm prideful about that in terms of being the same kid with the same heart, same classmate and teammate growing up all those years. So that hurts when I'm not able to get back to everybody. And then just planning, when Jen and I go out to certain places and do things, whether it's vacations or dinners, it's slightly different. You got to do a little bit more planning and mapping out for, you know, our privacy's sake and to have intentional one-on-one time. Because when we first got married, and like Jenna and I, we went to a Target to grocery shop and stuff, and people back home just started taking pictures, and then we're on TikToks and all these people at the store asking for pictures, and she started crying. She was like, this is tough. You know, we're not able to do normal life things, and it's tough, and we've had to learn that, and we're still learning it, but life like that is a little bit more different, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And you're not asking for like sympathy with that. It's just like, I get it. I get it to a little bit of a level. It's like growth as a human being, growth in your profession, growth as a couple, all that kind of stuff. Kind of the same thing you were saying, Joby. It's like a protection of your family.
Totally.
Because if you start giving everybody else what they want, you've got nothing left.
Yep.
Fame is making yourself accessible to a whole bunch of people that you don't know at the expense of those that you do.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what it is, man. And
This guy
so
will say some stuff now.
you got to pay attention to that because it's a trap. Because here's the thing, you do need to change. Yeah. I know in your heart you're the same guy and you have the same values, but in order to be who God has called you to be, you can't be accessible to everybody you used to be accessible to, because now all the things you just said about what it takes to swing for the fences to be who God has called you to be is one of the greatest, NFL quarterbacks and a great husband. Yep. And so every time you say yes to some other people, you're saying no to everything else.
Yep.
And I think, my experience with you is you have been incredibly gracious. This brother will FaceTime my son, who's a freshman in college. Just check on him. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Imagine that. JP's sitting, they're having a poker night at his house. And he's like, hold on one second. I've got a FaceTime from Purdy. And they're like, yeah, right. And he's like, say, hey. You know what? It takes you 5 minutes. It blows these kids' minds. You've said yes to a bunch of ministry stuff with me. And then you're going to have to learn to be okay that everybody doesn't have the same access to you that they used to. It's not an arrogant thing. It's actually a humble thing for you to just say yes to the opportunities God has given you and to love your wife like Christ loved the church. Mm. So Gretchen is also an introvert. So we just know, and again, it's very different. But our church in Jacksonville, if I'm within 30 minutes of where we're sitting right now, we've just got to expect, if we're out together, we're probably going to say hey to a few people, that kind of thing. So if we want a private dinner, we got to go somewhere or hide in a room somewhere. And if we want to be like shaking hands and saying everything, we sit across the street at Market 32 and just know that night's going to be a lot of like, hi, how are you? You know?
This. Yeah. Won't say anything.
Is that
stare at
and then I've just told our people, just say hey. Just come say hey, we go to church together and,
Well, I've noticed that with him because when he first started coming down here, like we didn't have to shield Brock. Like, right. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Well, even when he comes to church here.
Iowa State Brock in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I didn't know he was attending church here.
Yeah.
Until,
now it's like, wait, who's that guy sitting over there in the parking lot with his 5 kids? You know what I mean? Like it is a whole different thing. I can't imagine, because it's like that too, right? It's like 24 months.
You handle it well.
Everything changed. Yeah, you handle it amazingly.
And sometimes people like, Tim Tebow comes here and I'm like, dude, he can't walk through the lobby. He just can't get through the lobby, especially here. This is his hometown. And I've had people like, why do you treat Tim different? I'm like, because you do. Mm. If you just treated him like a normal person, then we all would. But if he walked in the lobby, he'd shut down the whole service. So I got to
But that's cool too, because I think Tim and Brock are the same. Like they come across as very accessible. Like,
dude, they're the most gracious people. Yeah. It's challenging to me.
Because I'm not going to speak for them, but I don't assume that either one of them want to lose that.
They don't.
It's not like they're looking for special treatment. Nobody's looking for special treatment. No. It's just such a unique thing that I don't think people factor into fame much. Like you just want to play football, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about going to church, being snuck in.
Yeah.
That's. I also imagine that's part of like the how did I get here, thank you God part, because like you said, the platform.
Yeah.
Like amazing the platform that you have right now.
Yeah. No, dude, it's we talk about it all the time just in terms of, dude, God's given me this platform, like how should I be using it for his kingdom and his glory? And I put a lot of myself of like, all right, I'm not doing enough, or I need to be doing this and that. And I think the enemy wants me to think like that.
Yeah, play the long game, man. Play the long game.
Yeah.
Like, let's go 15-year career, big fat foundation at that point. Your career, even if you have a long career relative to like normal humans, it's a very short career, right?
Yeah.
15 years, 12 years, something like that. Okay. And then you've got the rest, and you're currently going to leverage your whole life to the glory of God. Right now it needs to be touchdowns and championships, and then pointing to him with your words and the way you love your wife and act. And then you're going to have decades and decades and decades to join me on mission trips and those kind of things.
Yep.
So just don't get caught up. Like, so many people overestimate what they can get done in a very short amount of time and totally underestimate what God wants to use them for in a long stretch, you know?
That is so true. I've thought that. And like I said, dude, I think that the devil would just want me to get busy.
Dude, my only seminary professor that I like told me if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy.
Yep.
And you get real busy doing stuff instead of being faithful with what God has called you to do. And dude, you're going to leverage the opportunities. I mean, you've shared the gospel with me several times. I'm going to put you in front of some athletes too for you to just share your testimony, some things like that. We'll just do this one step at a time, and you just got to think the long game.
Yeah.
But the better you are as a quarterback and a husband and a human, the larger the influence you can have for the kingdom over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, to the normal person listening right now, is the better you are at what God has called you to do as your core, whatever that is.
Yeah, man.
Is the better your testimony is going to be, because you're representing what he wants out of you work-wise.
Haven't you met some Christians that are crappy?
Yes.
Listen, you get saved by grace. You're not employed by grace. Like, if you put a fish on your business card, that doesn't mean you get to do a crappy job at my house and be like, well, I'm a Christian and you're a pastor, so you got to give me grace. No. I'm about to give you money to do a job. What you ought to do is be the best. Like, take Chick-fil-A, for example. Like, everything's different. They're fast food like everybody else, but they decided we're going to do things differently. You know what I mean? The atmosphere is different. The attitude's different. And people, you look at that, and then they attach Christianity with it, and people are like, oh, wow, that's a good testimony. Everything we do in word and deed should be as unto the Lord.
So where did we get this as Christians? Where did we get this? Like, you can be too wealthy, you can be too successful, you can be like, where's that coming from?
Like Marxist. I'm serious, man. There's righteous rich and unrighteous rich, just like there's righteous poor and unrighteous poor. And so you never apologize for what you make as long as you make it in a God-honoring, honest way. But there's no excuse for not being rich towards God. There's a bunch of rich people in the Bible. Joseph of Arimathea was a rich guy. He's a big deal. That's whose tomb Jesus borrowed to be buried in. Abraham, super rich guy, leveraged it for the kingdom of God. But to be selfish and think more is mine, now you're out of step with kingdom values. And so we should all be rich towards God. And that means percentage-wise and priority. And everybody gets paid different, no problem. But the thing that we're looking forward to is being faithful with what God has given us so that we hear, well done, good and faithful servant. And that doesn't mean you earn your salvation. You hear, well done, good and faithful servant, if you put your faith in Jesus, who did it all for us at the cross. But when you believe that, then you realize, okay, God, this is all yours. You've given it the ability to coach, the ability to throw a ball and lead a team, the ability to preach the Bible. Okay, now I'm going to do this for you. Now, if we all swapped seats, we'd all be failures. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the key is, one of the worst things you can do is try to be what you're not. You know, like if you spent all of your time coaching an eagle to improve his 40-yard dash, what a waste of time, man. He doesn't need to run. He can fly. If you spend all of your time coaching a fish on how to climb, what a waste of time. So one of the key things is figure out, like, what on earth did God put me here for, and then be about that to the glory of God.
Yeah, I get, again, sorry to make this about me, but I get stuck in the, like, wait, God really gave me this cool of a life? Like, how did I, you know what I mean? Like, but there's a guilt almost with that. It's like, well, he didn't give that guy that cool of a life. Like, how am I getting to do this? You know what I mean? Like, I struggle with that quite a bit. Like, it's I don't know that I know what I'm doing, but here I am. And it's largely, you know, yeah. I mean, it's such a, I don't even know if I'm even describing that right. I don't know if you guys feel that, but it's just like, man, why did I get so lucky? What did I do to be able to sit here and do this for a living? Like I didn't do anything.
So that should stir to worship because it must be God because we're not this good. I mean, dude, I preach every pastor's conference you can imagine. So last week I'm in Orlando preaching to, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 church planners, you know what I mean? And I'm telling you, there's no difference between me and them. They're probably better. They're probably better preachers, better prayers, more faithful. And for whatever reason, God breathed on this thing that we're doing. So I just want to be faithful and grateful. And when you do that, it's really hard to get to like entitlement, you know, and doom and gloom. Just be faithful with what he's put in front of you and be grateful that you have the opportunity to do it.
You got to have some of that, man. Like you're walking into locker rooms with dudes that are just absolute units. I mean, just massive individuals, right?
Yep.
Like, and yet you're still out there carving it up. Like that's got to be a pretty cool thing to look around and just go, all right, I didn't know he would never say, so I'm going to say it. Like I'm at an elite level of an elite event, of an elite occupation. You don't get much higher than that, man. That's got to be pretty cool to look back at.
Yeah, I mean, like you guys are saying, it's like what God's given you, and I've just tried to turn it upside down and give it back up to him because it ain't mine. But there's the trap of comparing myself to guys that have come before and played in Kyle's offense or quarterbacks around the league. That's been, I think, a thing for me. Like I get caught up in, okay, well, this guy's had success this way and this guy that way. Should I be doing it like that? Or is it, hey, no, like this is how God's used me in my whole life. Like don't compare. Just be who he's created me to be and flip it up to him. You know, like that's how I've looked at it like that.
Talk about that compare game too, like in San Francisco. Like, I mean, Joe Montana, Steve Young, like holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the first time you met them? How was that?
Steve Young, I think was the first guy that I met, and just absolutely awesome. Just like we sat down, did a little podcast thing for the Niners, but the wisdom that he gave me out of the podcast, just in terms of handling the offense and processing, and he's like, that's the it factor. It's not anything else. And he goes, if you can continue to push yourself like with processing plays and defenses and all that kind of stuff mentally, he goes, that's what separated all of us from Joe to me to all the other guys. And so awesome guy. And then Joe, I think I met on the field before like the Chiefs one time and during the regular season game, and I was just starstruck, you know, and I just couldn't even believe that was Joe Montana. My dad grew up watching this guy and all the Super Bowls that he brought to San Francisco, but very humble guy, not about himself. So both of those guys, tremendous. But it's tough, dude. Like being in the shoes that I am now, and the pressure of, you know, these guys that have brought in championships back home to San Francisco, and not comparing myself to their style of play, but like what they did for the city and everything. That's more of like the pressure that I feel. But at the same time, it goes back to comparison kills, you know, and I can't just look at myself and wish that I had what they had. It's God's writing my story a certain way, and I'm going to continue to just worship him within that. So
how often do you step up to the line and you either, you know, the play is called or you audible into something and you're like, oh, it's on. Like I see it already. I can pre-see what's about to happen. And if he takes a step this way or whatever it is.
There's a couple times a game. It's not every down. Because like defenses scheme you up and they're going to try to get you off guard. So when you go into a game, there's a lot of different things actually that you've been used to seeing on film. But the teams that typically do the same thing over and over, like when I walk up to the line and Kyle's got, you know, a shot play on, and I'm like, all right, this is it. You know, it's just like a chance. Drop back, hold your eyes right where he said, and let it rip to the, you know, Kittle, and just be accurate, and you know, start thinking about how you're gonna celebrate.
I love it.
So. That game, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago about the difference in college and pro, and we talked about it a second ago. But the definition of a big play in college and the definition of a big play in NFL,
oh yeah,
two completely different things, isn't it?
Dude, huge. I mean, just converting third downs and the percentages of staying on the field past the 50 and the win-loss percent, like all those things in college, dude, you can, you know, have a huge play and break away for 50 yards. I feel like you see more of those big plays a lot easier, but in the NFL, dude, staying on the field, the first and second down check downs to get in third and manageable, like that's how you need to start thinking when you're in the NFL, rather than I need to go deep and get this place off their feet. You know, it's completely different, the mindset of staying on the field.
We were talking about this, and it's like in college, a 4-minute drive is forever.
Mhm.
Like, God, they gonna get off the field. In the NFL, 4-minute drive is like quick strike.
Yeah.
Like really quick strike. I mean, the two games are barely even the same game, aren't they?
No, I feel like the when it comes down to time of possession, that's such a big deal in the NFL with how long the games are and the guys that can manage the clock by running the ball well and then setting up play action pass and scoring and holding the lead and staying in the lead and just eating up the clock. That's really what it comes down to. That and then the 2-minute drive at the end of the game, every game.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I think that's a big difference for sure.
Halftime of that Detroit game, down, what was it? I wrote it down over here. 17. People always talk about halftime speeches. People always talk about stuff like that. What actually happens in that scenario? When you NFC Championship, you're down by 17, season's on the line. What does that look like at halftime?
Yeah, man. Well, before that, we're on the sideline, waiting for us to jog in for halftime, and Kittle comes up to me. And he's like, "Hey, Brocky, I can't wait to tell everybody at the end of the game, that they had us in the first half." And he was like trying to be all funny and upbeat guy. And Kittle's like that. He's spazzing 24/7 in a good way. And I was like, "Yeah." And I look over at him. I'm like, "Dude, you better just shut up, bro." Like, that's the last thing I want to hear right now, dude. But and he was right. We went into the locker room. We didn't do anything out of the ordinary. It was, hey, Kyle wrote up the plays that we're going to run. He said we need to be on, just have some sense of urgency within us and move the ball. And outside of that, we came together in the middle of the locker room, and Fred Warner and all the guys were like, "Dude, we're going to keep it simple. Defense, get some stops. Offense, do your thing, but hold each other to that, and that's it. And then at the end, we'll look up at the scoreboard and see what happens." And sure enough, that's what we did. We just one play at a time, moved the ball. Our defense got stops, and we celebrated, and George was right. So
that's cool. Because I think we get this impression that they go in the locker room and a coach yells at them, and then they all go, "Oh, well, that's what we're supposed to do. Well, that's all better now." Like it's,
we weren't mad enough.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't aggressive enough. Yeah. But it's business as usual, right? There's a plan. We got to execute the plan, regardless of how it started out. Like the plan, maybe there's some subtle changes, but the end goal is still the same.
Yeah.
Right. And I think emotional intelligence, emotional maturity in situations like that is far better than just a outburst.
100%.
Right? Like an outburst doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of good in most cases.
There's been times in my life where, we're down and it's like you start looking to guys like, "Hey, you need to make a play. You need to make a play. You need to be a Superman in some scenario." But the games that we've come back in, it's everybody just does their job and they know they got to do it well.
One play at a time.
One play at a time. And I know it sounds cheesy and everybody says that, but you get outside of that and you start thinking about the future and outcomes or what you did bad last quarter or last play. It's a nightmare waiting to happen, especially. And I think the best players, George, for example, I've learned so much from that cat because I think he does such a great job. Whether he missed a block, scored 2 touchdowns, he doesn't care. He's the next play, he's all in 100%. And it just speaks a lot. Like, especially for me as a quarterback, it's just about the next play. Every play has a life of its own. That's it. There's
a reason why those sayings all stick around, right? Like there's, it's not just dumb, right? I mean, it's wisdom. It's when you're young, you think of these sayings like, whatever. But that next play thing, I mean, that's real in every aspect of our lives. There is literally nothing I can do, even about the question that I asked you 2 minutes ago that may have been stupid. Like, I got to move on.
Yeah.
Right? Like that in an NFL sense, though, with 85,000 people or 80,000 people, whatever it is, watching live and, 10 million commenting on Twitter, like that's a decent test for you, though.
Do you ever look at the comments? Do you pay much attention to social media?
Like my teammates, no, I don't. But my teammates will send me stuff jokingly, "Dude, look at this guy said." It's hilarious. And but that's the only time I see stuff like that.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt.
2 years ago, last year at the Combine, it was a cool thing. We had Caleb Williams and Austin Reed, and at the end of each night, they would read each other the tweets about the other one.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it was absolutely hysterical. Yeah, it was a good thing to see guys in a pressure situation leaning on each other with guys who can understand what they're going through.
Right.
Which I think's the locker room, right? That's why that locker room's so safe and sacred. 100%. There's only so many people that know what you guys are actually going through.
Oh, yeah. We joke around all the time, telling each other the press is saying this or that, in a joking way, it's a healthy, way to go about it. But and then at the end of the day, dude, we all can relate to each other for how tough this thing is and what our families are going through and the sacrifices being made by not just ourselves, but everybody that's involved per family and per player. And so at the end of the day, man, we just put our arms around each other, build each other up, and it's a brotherhood, man. I know sports people say that a lot, but it really is. You get to know guys and they go play for another team or whatever, but the minute you see them after that game, it's like, dude, we went through something together one year, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And you can pick up the phone and call them and act like no time has been missed. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think more of this applies to, everybody out there not playing a professional sport than we realize, that one play at a time. Because the enemy would love for nothing more than either you live for what's not yet, and you're just speculating on the future all the time. And oftentimes that can lead to an excessive amount of worry because you're worried about things that may or may not happen. And the reason that you shouldn't be worried about your wife's cancer coming back is because God hasn't given you mercy for what might happen tomorrow. New mercies come in the morning, and he's given you enough mercy for you to get through today, and she's healthy and great. I saw her the other day.
Yep.
And or the enemy will get you to try to live in your past and try to define you by the last play and what could have been. He'll try to define you by your scars and where you screwed up and where you messed up. And the reality is that we're defined, if you're a believer in Jesus, you're defined by the scars of Jesus. And God's covenant name is I am that I am. Like he is eternally present in the right now. And that's where he wants us to live. Now, for sure, we have a plan about the future and we learn from our past, but we can only be in the right now. So you can't let the last play, whether it was good or bad, define the rest of your life. And you can't let what may come in the future ruin or rule the day. But we've got to live in the day that God has given us, which is right now.
Along those lines, is there something when you look back at your life that at the time you thought, man, this is like absolutely devastating, that now you look back and go, I see what was happening there?
Dude, there's so many things, but the one that comes to mind is like my junior year in high school, I got mono and was frail looking on film and stuff in high school. And I'm like, why am I not getting recruited? I'm breaking these records and having all these crazy games and stuff. But on film, I just look skinny and weak and all that. And then just led from there to recruitment being late to Iowa State to the getting drafted last as Mr. Irrelevant, all those things, my UCL getting torn, all the things, man. Like there's so many little moments, but then I'm sitting right here with you guys and I look back and I'm like, dude, like it's so beautiful how God just writes out these things. And honestly, it's tough when you go through them, but I've considered it joy. I've learned to consider it joy that I'm going through this tough stuff, but I know that time and time again, God has been faithful in my life, and I'm 25 years old and like youngish, that he's continued to be faithful in the 25 years that I've been alive. So I can't imagine down the road, you turn around and look back and be like, that makes sense. That's our God.
That's so good.
Amen.
That is so good, bro.
Now would be a good time to take up an offering.
Yeah, right.
That's what you do after a sermon like that.
That is so good, man. You got anything else you want to get into?
I think I would just say amen to what he just said.
I know.
Sure.
And sometimes it's easier to see in the lives of others. I think this is why there's so many 30 for 30s and sports stories, is because sometimes it might be a little bit easier to document on a field, like you just said, like recruiting, injury, Super Bowl, all those sort of things. But man, God is at work. This is Romans 8:28. God is at work in all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose. Whether you see it as a good thing or a bad thing right now, that he is in charge of all things and he will be glorified in it. And he's a good dad. You can trust him. You can trust him. So if it's not good, he's not done, because he's at work in all things for the good.
Can't think of a better way to end that.
Dude, I feel like I'm on a podcast with Joby Martin. It's awesome. Look at that. Sweet.
Hey, real quick though, if you're listening to this, please like, please subscribe, please share if you think it's any good. If you don't think it's any good, then don't. Like, that's fair, right?
That's very fair.
Yeah, that's very fair. No need to talk bad about it though. Just share. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like the Herb Street stuff was great. Did you listen to the Herb Street one?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It fantastic stuff. Like, and now we've got this, and it's fantastic stuff. And man, just sitting here and hearing the way my mind works, I'm taking football, putting it into the Bible. Mm-hmm. And I know it's probably supposed to be the other way around, sure, but it's the way I work. And you guys have no idea what this is doing for me personally. So I appreciate you guys for this.
And I appreciate you saying yes to the Lord.
Absolutely.
Sitting in the church service, years ago, and you felt like God laid something on your heart, and so now here we are. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. Cool. Brock, appreciate you.
Yeah,
big
thank
dog.
you guys. I can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
You can come
same
back
thing.
anytime you want.
Yeah, man.
No doubt.
I'd love to be back. When you told me that idea, like when you said you shot me a call, I was like, dude, this is it. Like Joby and Denny, like church, football, Jesus, dude, all of it. Just being a human and going through life. I was like, I'm all in. So
Let's go.
You got something you want to wrap us up, or do you already do it?
I think his what he said is spot on. Again, if you need a verse, Romans 8:28.
Perfect.
That God is at work in all things for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purpose.
Good luck to you, big dog.
sure. Thank you guys.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Good. That's so good, man.
How fun is that?
That was awesome.
This is one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
That's like, are you doing too many podcasts? I was like, hey,
Yes.
this is so